You're listening to Balance of Power with Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lines on Bloomberg Radio.
We call him Dad around here at Balance of Power for a lot of reasons. I know terminal users are asking about this. You would be his client. That's Nathan Dean, Senior Policy Analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence. Running odds always on legislation that matters, or sometimes lack of legislation. That would be the government shutdown looming on the 1st of March. Remembering, Kaylee, it's a staggered, laddered shutdown, so it actually starts the 1st and completes on the 8th. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. We've been talking to a lot of lawmakers around here, and we can't seem to get anything done, never mind write a whole budget in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, there have been some things they agreed to. The top line figure is actually how that will be appropriated among the different packages, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's all easily said and done, especially when you have Super Tuesday and the President's State of the Union address falling in between these two deadlines. It's not going to be a busy first week of March at all.
No, not at all. So, we seek the voice of wisdom in Nathan Dean. I think you were at, good to see you, by the way, 60 to 70% last time we talked, but I know this is fluid. What does it look like now?
Yeah, so we don't actually think there's going to be a government shutdown,
You don't.
Even for the March 1st date. I mean, there's just really no strategy to it at this point. I mean, there's really no plan of action. I mean, essentially, folks down in Capitol Hill right now are just living for the next day. And so we think what will happen is that come February, remember, the Senate and the House, they're not together all that much in the month of February. Eventually, they're just going to start thinking about the elections. They're going to start thinking about kicking the can down the road. They're going to get that itch, to kick the can. Now, where it comes with this border security Ukraine-Israel deal. Now, we think the border security deal is essentially dead. You've been running, lots of speakers all this afternoon talking about that. But for Ukraine and Israel, and this is what's most important to us here when we look at the companies and the industries, we still think Ukraine and Israel do have an opportunity to move ahead as part of this funding package. And eventually, nothing in this shutdown threat or this, Ukraine-Israel fight is really going to hold the feet to the fire to these politicians other than this April 30th sequester, which is 1% cut, including the Department of Defense. So whether they kick the can or down the road or not, ultimately, we think a deal gets done.
Okay, so while we've been paying attention to all these deals, potential deals on Capitol Hill, we maybe have looked over, at least to this part, the fact that something else was happening on Capitol Hill today. In the House, before the Financial Services Committee, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen was testifying officially as the check-in on the FSOC, the Financial Stability Oversight Council. But what did she say? Did anything interesting come from her today that we haven't already kind of heard her and others in the administration reiterating repeatedly over the last significant time now?
Yeah, so I think there's three things. One, she talked about this thing of non-banks systemically institution designation. And this is primarily geared towards BlackRock. And, they've made steps to make it seem like they were going to deem BlackRock a systemically important financial institution and then give them more requirements. But she made comments today that this isn't the preferred choice. So if I'm BlackRock or I'm a hedge fund or private equity fund, maybe you can breathe a little bit easier. She talked about crypto bills. She talked about how she needed to give the CFTC spot market authority. This is something that Patrick McHenry, the chairman of the House Financial Services Committee, wanted. I don't think they're going to get it this year. We have low odds on that. We have higher odds on a stablecoin bill, and Patrick McHenry was pushing this as well. But the third thing is the Basel III endgame. They asked her flat out, do you support the Basel III endgame as proposed, yes or no? And she refused to give an answer. Now, I think what she's doing here is she's giving the regulators flexibility because everybody in town is against this proposal. We struggle to find proponents other than some of the more advocacy groups out there. So I think what will happen is that she's giving the Fed flexibility to go back, make these substantial changes to this proposal, and then eventually try and repropose it in June.
I just love that we're calling it FSOC on the air. This is the most Washington show ever conceived for TV or radio. The Soup 2 GWAC conference. We'll talk more about that coming up as well. Great to see you, as always, Nathan Dean.